She didn't whisper it. She didn't soften it. She said it across the candlelit table like she was reading terms and conditions. "My ex wants me back," Sabrina said, eyes bright, mouth tilted in that confident half-smile. "So, give me one reason I should stay with you instead." I set my glass down and looked at her the way you look at a stranger who's accidentally sat at your table. Polite, curious, and suddenly not invested. "Okay," I said. She waited for the begging, the bargaining, the speech. Instead, I reached into my jacket, slid my card toward the server, and asked for a split payment. I paid for exactly what I'd ordered, stood up, and walked out into the night without raising my voice. That was the moment she learned something she'd forgotten during our 3 years together. I wasn't a safety net. I was a choice. And she had just made hers. Let me back up. My name is Noah. I'm the kind of person who buys tires before the tread turns into a prayer. I keep my calendar clean, my fridge stocked, my credit score boringly excellent. I work as a project manager for a construction firm. Deadlines, budgets, permits, problem solving. I like building things that last. Sabrina liked saying she wanted that too. When we met, she was coming off a relationship that sounded like a documentary you watch and then text your friends, "Never let me date a man like this." Her ex, Jackson, had been a walking adrenaline rush. Beautiful chaos. He wrote songs, made big promises, disappeared for days, came back with grand apologies and a new tattoo. He cheated, blamed his trauma, then asked her to be patient with his growth. The last straw, she told me, was when he ghosted her for a month and resurfaced with a smile and a story about how the universe needed him. She said she was done with all that. "I want peace," she told me on our third date. Real peace. Not the fake kind where you're always waiting for the next blow-up. So I gave her real peace. I remembered her oat milk order. I picked her up from the airport at midnight when her flight got delayed twice. I fixed her wobbly kitchen chair and assembled her dresser without complaining about the instructions that looked like ancient hieroglyphics. When she cried about her job, I listened. When her mom called with another passive-aggressive comment, I held her hand and didn't make it worse. When her car needed repairs, I helped her find a fair mechanic instead of letting a shady shop drain her savings. For the first 2 years, she praised me for it. Then the word steady started changing its tone. It began harmlessly. A laugh, a tease. "You're so consistent," she'd say, like it was cute. Then gradually, it became a sigh. "You're so consistent," she'd say, like it was a limitation. She started using a new adjective, one that always landed like a small slap. Predictable. My Sunday meal prep was predictable. My savings goals were predictable. My idea of a fun evening, homemade pasta, a movie, and an early bed, was predictable. She wanted spontaneity, which was her way of saying she wanted to feel something sharp enough to distract her from herself. Around that same time, Jackson returned to the city. I didn't even hear it from her directly. I heard it the way you hear weather updates, casually, as background information, like it didn't matter. One night we were waiting for takeout, and she was scrolling Instagram. She paused, then tapped her screen, then paused again. "What?" I asked. "Nothing," she said too quickly. I didn't push. I rarely pushed. That was part of my problem, I guess. I'd spent years learning how to be calm. I didn't realize some people treat calm like a challenge. A few days later, she mentioned it like she was tossing a pebble into a pond to watch the ripples. "Jackson moved back," she said. "He's playing shows again. And he started some content studio, like marketing and music combined. He's actually doing well." I made a neutral sound. Good for him. She watched my face, looking for jealousy. When she didn't get it, she looked disappointed, like she'd hoped I'd give her something to frame as controlling. That's when the comparison started. "Jackson knows how to live," she said after a coworker's party. "He's not afraid to just do things." I didn't ask what do things meant. I knew. It meant reckless. It meant loud. It meant a life where consequences were a distant rumor. Then it turned into decoration critiques. We lived in a bright two-bedroom apartment with clean lines and plants that were, admittedly, doing better than either of us. I liked it. It felt like home. Sabrina started calling it safe. And not in the warm blanket way, in the you've never left your hometown way. This place is nice, she'd say, dragging out the word nice. But it's kind of neutral, like a hotel, like it doesn't have a story. It has a story, I said once. It's our story. She laughed like I'd made a joke. The secrecy didn't arrive all at once. It crept in. A phone turned face down. A sudden password change. A glow on her cheeks from a screen she angled away. One Tuesday night, her phone buzzed while we were on the couch. She snatched it with the speed of a magician hiding a coin. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said. "Work." She typed quickly, then locked the screen and hugged the phone to her thigh. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I just stored it away in that quiet part of my brain that keeps receipts. A week later, she forgot a detail. "Julia is freaking out about the client," she said, eyes on her phone. "Julia got laid off in January," I said gently. She blinked, 1 second too long, then laughed. "Right. I meant Jenna. Sorry, long day. She wasn't even good at it. She just assumed I wouldn't pay attention. By late spring, we were coexisting more than connecting. She was everywhere and nowhere, physically present but mentally elsewhere. When I talked about projects at work, she nodded without listening. When she talked about her day, her words were more performance than sharing, like she was practicing a narrative. Then she invited me to dinner at a trendy wine bar downtown. It was her idea, which should have been a good sign, except she chose the place Jackson always loved, the one with the neon sign that said "Stay Wild" in cursive. It was the kind of place where people paid too much for tiny plates and called it an experience. She arrived in a black outfit that looked like she'd dressed for an audition. Her lipstick was perfect. Her energy was not. She checked her phone before she said hello. We sat. We ordered. She didn't ask me how my day was. She didn't ask about my mom's upcoming surgery. She didn't ask anything that required her to be present. Halfway through the second glass, she finally did it. "My ex wants me back," she said, casually stirring her drink with a straw like she was discussing parking. I didn't move. "Okay. He says he's different," she continued. "He apologized for how he treated me. He says he's in therapy. He's building something real now." Still, I waited. Then she leaned in, voice lowering as if she was sharing something intimate, when really she was making a demand. "And I need you to give me a reason," she said. "One reason I should stay with you instead." The audacity wasn't the fact that she missed Jackson. People get confused. People relapse into old patterns. The audacity was the way she framed it, like I was a contestant on a game show and she was the prize. She watched me, expecting my ego to start tap dancing. Something clicked in me. Not anger, not heartbreak, just clarity. I called the server and asked for separate checks. Sabrina's eyebrows pulled together. "What are you doing?" "I'm answering your question," I said. "You asked me to convince you to stay with me. I'm realizing I shouldn't have to." "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. I smiled, calm. "If you want to compare me to him, fine. But I'm not going to compete for a relationship I've been showing up for every day." She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Noah, you're being ridiculous. I'm just trying to be honest. Honest would have been you saying, 'I'm struggling and I need to talk.' This is different. This is you asking me to audition." My check came. I paid for my food and my drink, not hers. Not the extra bottle she'd ordered for the table without asking. She stared at the bill in front of her like it was betrayal. "You're just going to leave me here?" she hissed. "I'm leaving myself," I said quietly. "I should have done it sooner." I walked out. In the elevator down, my hands were steady. My heart was too. I expected pain to hit me like a wave. It didn't. What hit me was relief. The kind you feel when you stop holding your breath without realizing you were. Her text started before I reached the street. Sabrina. Are you serious? Sabrina. You embarrassed me. Sabrina. Everyone saw. Sabrina, come back. Now. Then, when I didn't respond, the tone shifted. Sabrina. Wow. So you're just like the rest. Sabrina. You're actually heartless. Sabrina. I can't believe I wasted 3 years on you. I didn't block her. Not because I wanted contact, because I wanted a record. People who rewrite reality hate evidence. When I got home, I found her key on the counter. She must have left it earlier, which meant she'd planned the dinner, planned the ultimatum, planned to watch me squirm. I poured a glass of water, opened the closet, and started packing her things. Not in a rage, in a methodical, respectful way. Folded clothes, shoes paired, toiletries sealed. I found a stack of receipts for impulse purchases that I'd quietly covered when her account was tight. I found a notebook filled with quotes about choosing yourself and not settling. I boxed it all and carried it to the storage room on our floor. Our building had lockers tenants could rent. I rented one online in 5 minutes, placed her boxes inside, locked it, and took a photo of the key code. Then I texted her. Noah. Your things are in locker 3B in the storage room downstairs. Code is 4491. Please pick them up tomorrow. Don't come to my door. Her response arrived instantly, like she'd been waiting with her thumbs hovering. Sabrina. You're insane. Sabrina. You think you're so mature. Sabrina. Jackson would never treat me like this. Sabrina. He actually makes me feel alive. I didn't answer. The next morning, the smear campaign started. A message from her friend Lila popped up. Lila. Sabrina told me what you did. Leaving her with that bill? That's disgusting. She was crying all night. You need to apologize. I read it twice and felt something almost like pity. Not for Sabrina. She was in motion, spinning her story. For Lila, who'd been handed a narrative and expected to carry it like a flag. I replied with facts. Noah. Hi, Lila. She told me her ex wants her back and asked me to give her a reason she should stay with me instead. I declined to participate. I paid for what I ordered and left. She's free to pursue whatever she wants now. I attached a screenshot of Sabrina's texts bragging about Jackson. Because I'm not a philosopher, I'm practical. Lila didn't respond. By day 2, Sabrina had moved to public performance. She posted a photo of 2 coffees on a marble table. One hand, male, tattooed, held the second cup. Caption. Finally choosing energy over comfort. Then a story from a rooftop bar. Loud music, flashing lights. Caption. No more boring. I watched through a friend's account. I didn't give her the satisfaction of knowing I'd seen it. People like Sabrina feed on attention the way fire feeds on oxygen. I went to work. I met deadlines. I went to the gym. I cooked chicken and rice. I slept. On the 4th day, a message came from a guy I barely knew, Caleb. We'd met once at a mutual friend's barbecue. He wasn't close enough to text me for no reason, which is why my stomach tightened when I saw his name. Caleb. Hey man, random. Are you and Sabrina done for real? Noah. Yes, why? A pause, then, Caleb. Okay, I'm only saying this because I'd want someone to tell me. Caleb. Jackson is telling people Sabrina is staying with him for now. Caleb. His actual girlfriend is coming back from Toronto next week. He's been calling her his real relationship. Caleb. Sabrina thinks she's back with him. He's not seeing it that way. I stared at the screen for a long time. It was so on brand, it almost felt scripted. Sabrina had called me predictable like it was a flaw. Meanwhile, this was predictable in the worst way. A man like Jackson doesn't suddenly become a good partner because he learned new vocabulary in therapy. He becomes a better performer. I didn't warn her, not out of spite, out of boundaries. I had spent 3 years being her translator, her support staff, her calm. I wasn't volunteering for another shift. 2 nights later, my phone lit up at 1:12 a.m. Sabrina. Noah. Sabrina, please answer. Sabrina, it's an emergency. I set my phone face down and went back to reading. Then came the follow-ups. Sabrina, he kicked me out. Sabrina, he said I was temporary. Sabrina, I'm outside. It's cold. Sabrina, I don't have anywhere to go. I didn't respond. At 6:40 a.m., someone buzzed my building. I didn't pick up. At 6:45, someone buzzed again. Then again. Then again. Like the buzzer could wear me down the way her mood swings used to. I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and took the elevator down. Not to let her in, but to keep the situation controlled. If she made a scene on our floor, my neighbors would hear. If she made it in the lobby, the cameras would record it. When the elevator doors opened, she was there. Not the polished Sabrina who posed for captions. This Sabrina had swollen eyes and blotchy cheeks. Her hair was in a messy knot. She was wearing an oversized jacket that clearly wasn't hers anymore. She ran toward me with the urgency of someone who believes tears are currency. Noah, she said, voice cracked. Thank God, I knew you would. I held up a hand. Her face faltered. Please, she whispered. He's a monster. He laughed at me. He said I was just temporary, I finished, because Caleb had already done the foreshadowing for her. She blinked, startled that I already knew. Yes, and I don't have anyone else. My mom is out of town. Lila won't answer. I can't go back there. I just need to come upstairs, shower, sleep, and then we can talk. We can fix this. I swear I'll block him. I swear. Sabrina, I said, calm, like I was speaking to a coworker who'd missed a deadline. There's nothing to fix. Her eyes widened, rage flashing through the tears. How can you be so cold? After everything? Because I finally warmed up to myself, I said. You didn't come back because you chose me. You came back because your other option rejected you. That's not fair, she snapped. It's accurate, I said. She tried another angle. Soft voice, helpless posture. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Mistakes are forgetting an appointment, I said. You didn't forget. You negotiated. You asked me to sell myself to keep you. That's not a mistake. That's a mindset. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Then her shoulders slumped. So you're just going to let me be homeless? She whispered. I exhaled. I didn't want her suffering. I just didn't want her suffering in my life. I pulled out my wallet and took a prepaid ride card I kept for emergencies, something my company handed out for late-night site visits. I'd never used it. I held it out. This has enough for a ride to wherever you're staying next. A friend's, a hotel, your aunt's. I don't care, but it won't be my apartment. She stared at it like it was an insult. Then she snatched it from my hand with shaking fingers. I hate you, she hissed. You're going to die alone. Maybe, I said, but I'll die with peace. And peace is something you keep calling boring because you don't know how to live without noise. She took a step back, chest rising and falling like she wanted to scream. For a moment, I thought she would. Then she looked around the lobby, at the security camera, at the doorman, at the quiet morning, and realized she couldn't create her usual theater without witnesses she couldn't control. She turned and walked out. I watched through the glass as she got into a rideshare and drove away. Back upstairs, I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I made coffee and sat at my table, staring at the steam like it was a new beginning. Over the next month, Sabrina tried different doors. She emailed my work address. I forwarded it to HR and asked them to block external emails from her domain. She sent a letter to my mailbox. I didn't open it. I photographed the envelope and saved it in a folder labeled just in case. She tried to use mutual friends as messengers. I told them calmly not to. Every time she reached, she found air. That was the boundary. Not anger, not revenge, just absence. And in the absence, my life expanded. I started sleeping deeper, my jaw unclenched. My weekends stopped feeling like I was preparing for a storm. I painted my spare room into a small home office. I took a weekend course on woodworking because I'd always wanted to, and because building a table made more sense than trying to build a future with someone who kept shopping for upgrades. In late summer, I met Maya at a bookstore cafe. She was sketching floor plans on a napkin. She was an interior designer, and I accidentally knocked over my coffee reaching for a book. I apologized like a normal person. She laughed like it wasn't a crime. We talked. Not flirt talk. Real talk. About work, about family, about how adulthood is mostly choosing what kind of tired you want to be. On our third date, she came over while I was meal prepping and said, "This is kind of hot." I laughed. "My chicken?" "No," she said, watching me label containers. "The fact that you take care of yourself, that you plan. It's attractive." It was the opposite of what Sabrina had trained me to expect. For years, I'd been made to feel like being responsible was a personality defect. Maya looked at it like it was a sign of respect. For me, for her, for whatever we were building. 6 months after the wine bar, I saw Sabrina again. Not at my door, not in my inbox, in public by accident. I was at a farmer's market with Maya, carrying a bag of apples and fresh bread. Maya was teasing me about how seriously I took selecting tomatoes. Sabrina walked past the stall and stopped when she saw me. She was dressed well, makeup perfect, hair done. She looked like she'd reassembled herself for the audience. But her eyes were tired. Not sad, tired. The kind of tired you get from living in a cycle you refuse to learn from. She was with a man who was talking loudly into his phone, gesturing like the world owed him attention. She trailed behind him, holding 2 heavy bags, nodding at whatever he said without really being part of the conversation. It wasn't Jackson. It was just the next version. Our eyes met. For a second, I saw her waiting, hoping for a reaction. Anger, regret, longing, something she could use to tell herself she still mattered. I gave her nothing. Not because I hated her, but because I finally understood something. Attention is a form of permission, and I wasn't granting it anymore. I turned back to Maya and asked, "Do you want to grab lunch after this?" Maya smiled. "Sure." Sabrina kept staring until the man she was with snapped his fingers and told her to hurry up. She followed him. I didn't watch. Later that night, I thought about the question Sabrina had asked me at that table. Give me one reason I should stay with you. Back then it felt like an insult. Now it felt like a gift, because it forced me to ask myself a better question, one I should have asked long before she did. Why was I staying with someone who only valued me when I was saving her from herself? I never gave Sabrina a reason to stay. She didn't deserve a pitch, but she gave me the clearest reason to leave. She showed me exactly who she was before I made her permanent. And that's the kind of clarity you can't buy, no matter how expensive the wine is.